200 million liters of water are lost every time a ship passes through, 14,000 ships every year, and 172 million tons of cargo transported, and more than $500,000 for a single vessel to cross just 80 kilometers of water. This is not a miracle. It is the Panama Canal, an engineering marvel that reshaped global trade. But before it became the shortcut between two oceans, where a journey that once took 24 days was reduced to just 8 hours, this was a wild land with deadly climate, flooded jungles, and landslides that swallowed entire trains. The Panama Canal was not built only with concrete and steel. It was built with the will of engineers who dared to challenge nature, and with the lives of thousands who paid the ultimate price to connect the Atlantic and the Pacific for the first time in history. In this video, join Mandarin Tech as we explore how this wonder was created and why it remains a lifeline of the modern world. For hundreds of years, traveling around South America to connect the Atlantic and the Pacific meant a perilous journey. More than 20,000 kilometers, equivalent to 12,400 miles, of additional sea travel, weeks spent at sea, and constant exposure to violent storms. The dream of creating a shortcut between two oceans emerged in the 16th century, when Spanish explorers realized that the Isthmus of Panama was less than 80 kilometers wide, equivalent to 50 miles. But it took nearly 400 years, and the involvement of two major powers, France and the United States, for the world to finally witness that vision become reality. After more than a decade of cutting through mountains and jungle, moving hundreds of millions of cubic meters of earth and rock, building gigantic lock systems, and paying the price with the lives of tens of thousands of workers, the Panama Canal officially opened. This became one of the most expensive and ambitious engineering projects in the Americas, with a total cost equivalent to more than $10 billion today. And from that moment on, this waterway permanently reshaped global trade. But behind its smooth operation lies an extraordinary technical system, from massive water locks and steel gates weighing thousands of tons to the management of water levels that depends entirely on Panama's freshwater resources. And that is the engineering story we are about to explore. To create this sea route that is only 80 kilometers long, humanity had to build not just a canal, but an engineering revolution in the very land considered the graveyard of construction projects. And that journey began with a bold decision: conquering nature instead of trying to fight against it. A series of massive steam shovels were deployed to remove earth and rock, each bucket capable of moving up to 2 tons of material in a single scoop. The soil was then loaded onto specialized rail cars and transported along a railway system that ran across the entire construction site. When reaching the dump area, unloading machines used a steam-powered hoist mechanism to tilt the cars to the side, dumping all the earth within seconds, much faster than any manual method. To level the dump sites and create the foundation for new rail lines, spreaders with steel blades measuring 13 feet distributed earth and rock evenly from both sides of the tracks, turning massive piles of soil into stable surfaces. One of the most important innovations was the track shifter, a machine capable of lifting and relocating an entire stretch of railway to a new position without dismantling it, saving millions of dollars and reducing the need for hundreds of workers. Combined with large-scale blasting and steam-powered concrete lifters, this entire machinery system transformed the mountains and jungles of Panama into a completed canal route. Later, when the old canal system could no longer handle the enormous volume of ships and the increasing size of vessels, Panama decided to expand the canal. The project added a new set of locks that were wider and deeper, requiring extremely large machinery such as dredging vessels, heavy lift cranes, and steel lock gates weighing thousands of tons. Thanks to this expansion, the canal can now accommodate Neo-Panamax ships and continue to serve as a vital artery of global trade. This expansion also helped reduce maritime congestion and shorten ship waiting times. It is considered a strategic upgrade to ensure that the canal maintains its influence in global commerce. But the real challenge only appears when the ship enters the canal. How do you lift a massive vessel by 26 meters using only water? The answer lies in the Gatún locks. 1 hour after entering the canal, the ship has traveled about 11 kilometers from the Caribbean entrance and faces its first challenge, the Gatún Dam. Another kilometer ahead, the Gatún lock system comes into view, the giant gateway that raises ships from sea level to an elevation of 26 meters above the Atlantic. This system consists of 3 independent but interconnected chambers that serve as the link between the ocean and Lake Gatún. The problem is this: at over 300 meters long, Panamax ships are nearly at the size limit of the locks, which themselves are only 320 meters long, meaning the margin for error is virtually zero. Not to mention, each ship carries thousands of tons of cargo, making maneuvering extremely risky. If a ship collides with the walls or gets stuck, the journey stops immediately. And worse, if the locks are damaged, the entire Panama Canal may have to shut down for maintenance. Another challenge comes from visibility. Pilots must control the ship from a bridge located more than 220 meters behind the bow, leaving them with severely limited visibility. Just getting the ship into the mouth of the lock takes about 30 minutes, with support from multiple specialized tugboats that help position the vessel correctly at the starting point. But getting the ship inside is only the first step. When the ship enters the first lock chamber, a specialized crew throws down mooring lines to attach steel cables to the bow and stern. These cables are connected to extremely powerful locomotives called mules, or steel mules, that run along both sides of the canal. Each locomotive weighs about 50 tons, but can control ships that are 100 times heavier. They do not pull the ship forward by brute force. Instead, they keep the vessel perfectly balanced, adjusting its position by pulling from different directions so that the ship always stays centered in the chamber. The locomotives continuously adjust the cable tension throughout the entire process, because if a cable becomes too loose or too tight, it can snap and create a whiplash effect, a steel lash with enough force to cut a person in half or destroy equipment. Once the ship is stabilized, the lock operator closes the rear gate. These massive steel gates, over 2 meters thick, are engineered to withstand the enormous water pressure pushing in from the lake. When the ship is fully secured, the lifting process begins. Valves at the bottom of the chamber are opened, allowing fresh water from Lake Gatún to flow in by gravity, gradually raising the water level and lifting the ship. The flow rate must be controlled with extreme precision to avoid creating turbulence or strong currents that could push the vessel into the lock walls or overstretch the steel cables. When the water level matches the next chamber, the locomotives move into new positions. The 680-ton steel gate opens, and the ship is pulled into the middle chamber. This procedure is repeated 3 times until the vessel reaches the height of 26 meters, equal to the water level of Lake Gatún. Here, the cables are detached and the ship continues freely into the lake, a 425 square kilometer artificial reservoir, the largest in the world when it was built, formed by damming the Chagres River. The lake is not only the internal navigation route for the canal, but also provides drinking water for the people of Panama and generates an important share of the country's electricity. After about 5 hours traveling across the lake, the ship reaches the end of Gatún and prepares to enter the narrowest section of the entire route, the Culebra Cut, also known as the Cut Snake. This was once the site of catastrophic landslides during construction. But passing through the Cut Snake is still not the end. The ship must still navigate 2 more lock systems, Pedro Miguel and Miraflores, to descend back to the Pacific Ocean's sea level. These 2 systems operate similarly to Gatún, but in reverse. Water is released through valves and gravity, gradually lowering the vessel by 26 meters, opening up the final 5 kilometers before the ship officially reaches the Pacific and completes its transcontinental journey. Although it is a man-made sea route that brings enormous benefits in time and cost, the Panama Canal operates under extremely sensitive conditions. To reach Panama City on the Pacific side, each ship must pass through narrow stretches, limited visibility bends, and the entire complex lock system, where an error measured in centimeters can lead to disaster. For this reason, the Panama Canal holds a unique rule in the global maritime industry. It is the only place where the captain is required to temporarily hand over control of their ship to someone else. This authority is transferred to the praeticos, the canal's professional pilots, who undergo years of training and practice to master every meter of the canal, every current, wind speed, depth level, valve location, and lock operating mechanism. Throughout the entire transit, they are the ones fully responsible for steering ships weighing tens of thousands of tons through the canal's most treacherous sections. During normal periods, up to 40 ships may cross the canal each day, carrying around 600,000 tons of cargo. However, this system depends entirely on fresh water from Lake Gatún, making the canal vulnerable to climate change. The beating heart of the Panama Canal's operation is Lake Gatún, the massive artificial reservoir that provides all the water used to raise and lower ships in the locks. In 2023 and 2024, the most severe drought in more than 60 years caused the lake's water level to fall to record lows, forcing Panama to reduce daily transits to only 24-32 ships, directly impacting the global supply chain. Large vessels were forced to reduce cargo to avoid the risk of grounding. Transport efficiency dropped sharply, pushing canal tolls up by as much as 400%. Many international shipping routes had to divert or wait in line for weeks, creating congestion throughout the global supply chain. By mid-2025, heavy rainfall helped partially restore water levels, allowing transit capacity to rise to 31-32 ships per day, but draft limits remain in place. And more concerning, with climate change reducing rainfall over the long term, the stability of the Panama Canal, the maritime route that carries 6% of global trade, is becoming more precarious than ever. The idea of linking the Atlantic and the Pacific by water has haunted humanity for more than 500 years. But it was only when the Panama Canal was completed that this dream became reality. Connecting the two oceans created a huge leap in transport efficiency. Instead of sailing more than 20,000 kilometers around South America for nearly 2 weeks, ships now need only about 8 hours to cross Panama, nearly 40 times faster. This reduction in travel time not only saves fuel and operating costs, but also accelerates global cargo flow, helping businesses cut inventory and optimize supply chains. With this strategic role, the Panama Canal has become a crucial financial pillar for the country, generating more than $2 billion USD annually from transit fees, accounting for about 3% of Panama's GDP. Large vessels can even pay more than 500,000 USD just to pass through, a fee regarded as the most expensive in the world for a distance of only 80 kilometers. Although it is more than 110 years old, the Panama Canal remains an irreplaceable link in the international trade system. To visualize this clearly, imagine a massive container ship traveling from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Without the canal, the entire American continent would become a wall blocking its path. The only option then would be to sail around the treacherous Cape Horn, adding up to 15 extra days at sea and consuming thousands of tons of fuel. Thanks to the canal, 6% of global trade, including energy, consumer goods, agricultural products, and industrial components, is transported faster and more cheaply, helping maintain the continuous flow of goods between Asia, North America, and Europe. For that reason, any disruption in Panama can create a domino effect on transportation costs, logistics, and global supply chains. More than a century has passed since the SS Ancon glided through the first steel gates of the Panama Canal, opening a new chapter for global trade. From a 500-year dream to a project built with blood, sweat, and human lives, the Panama Canal is not just a route connecting two oceans. It is a testament to human will, boldness, and ingenuity in the face of harsh nature. Today, every ship that passes through these waters is a reminder of the tens of thousands of workers who fell, and of engineers like Stevens and Goethals, who once stood before challenges no one else dared to face. The colossal locks, the vast Lake Gatún, And the 80-kilometer waterway across a continent do not merely transport goods, they carry the spirit of human progress. And as ships continue to cross the canal under the sunrise of the Atlantic or the sunset of the Pacific, we understand that this wonder is still writing its story, a story of determination, innovation, and the belief that for humanity, nothing is truly impossible.